Karen's conversation. Thank you, guys. And we are live. So thanks again. This is leg 4 of this afternoon's programming. And actually everything has tied together quite nicely. You heard from Randy talking about some of the issues on the border that replicate some of the things we were talking about in the context of the MENA region. So Chris's discussion about the border and water comes to heart when you talk about some of the technical aspects that Randy was bringing up. And then the journey that Juan has gone through to develop his business and to maintain the integrity of his value proposition is kind of leaning towards now kind of the resilience of what New Mexico represents, and all the opportunities that are in the infrastructure also correspond with the culture of entrepreneurship that is going on in this state. To top that off, I wanted to have a conversation with Karen Converse, who's the Director of Operations for Los Poblanos Organic Farms. She is a colleague also because she teaches adjunct classes for the introductory international management class. And we've had wonderful conversations over the past year and a half. And I've learned a lot from her in terms of her dedication to process. Her background is in engineering. And so she brings this concept of process into kind of the context of all these international things that we've been talking about. So thank you for your time, Karen.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and the floor is yours. As you indicate, we'll steer as a conversation. So once again, chat is available. And if you have any questions, Karen, can you see the chat bar?
I can.
All right, so I'm just gonna be quiet and the floor is yours.
So hi, everybody. Dr. Montoya introduced me. I'm Karen Converse. I'm actually a New Mexico native. I grew up here in Albuquerque. I went to New Mexico State. I got my undergrad in industrial engineering. I went off and my whole career has been centered around manufacturing. Went to Texas, came back to Albuquerque shortly after 9/11, and I've been here ever since. I went back and got my master's at New Mexico Tech in engineering management. So it's a cross between engineering and business, really kind of the operational part of it. And while I was doing that, I was working for an organization called New Mexico Manufacturing Extension Partnership. It's a private-public partnership through the Department of Commerce. And really my role there was to work with small manufacturers throughout the state of New Mexico, really looking at their processes and operations and how they could be competitive on a global level. Tied in with that, I met Randy Trask. We were doing a program called Export Tech, which was basically a boot camp for companies to really get their export plan up and running and how they can get their products and services on the global service. Through that, I was approached by Los Poblanos to come and help them kind of ramp up their manufacturing of their lavender goods. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with Los Poblanos. It is a historic farm in the North Valley. We have 4 acres of lavender that we're growing and we harvest. Every year we harvest about 2 to 3 tons of lavender. The family who started it kind of wanted it to be a historic preservation project. A lot of traditional historic preservation projects turn into museums, not very profitable. So they were trying to come up with an agritourism model. Lavender in the Southwest grows really well. It's a low water crop and everybody loves it. And through this whole pandemic, we've seen a huge spike. And a lot of articles have been written in the last month or so about a spike in lavender. Traditionally, it is known for its properties of calming stress, helping you sleep. You see a lot of stuff for lavender. So we've seen a ton of uptick there, kind of just supporting the pandemic. But Los Poblanos is a pretty dynamic business. We have a 50-room inn, a farm-to-table restaurant, an event center that was kind of around weddings and get-togethers. And through this whole pandemic, the events took a huge hit. Can't have groups more than 5, so we're not seeing a whole lot of weddings going on. We had to cancel probably about $250,000 worth of business in weddings alone. With the hotel, we could only operate at 25% capacity when we were able to open back up. So for a 50-room inn, that equates to 13 rooms, not a whole lot of revenue going there. And then with some of the issues with the restaurant, we'd have closed that. So as a business, we were facing a pretty significant hit. And because we make some body care products, one of them being our lavender hand soap, we were able to stay open for the manufacturing and the retail side because we were providing an essential product. Over the last 6 months, we've seen almost a 200% increase in sales in our hand soap alone, which is crazy. Here on property, we make all our what we call anhydrous products, which is anything that's oil-based. So our salve and our soaps, our bar soaps, we make on property. All our amenities are, Vicky, I love our hand sanitizer too, which is what we're going to talk about, Raina. So we partner with a company here in town that they do contract manufacturing for us. Anything that's water-based, they make for us, because to make a water-based product, you need to have an on-site lab, do testing, because bacteria loves to grow in water, and so we have to maintain those standards. So not only, you know, do we oversee the manufacturing here, I have to oversee manufacturing at one of our contract manufacturers. So as we're facing this pandemic and what we're going to do, a lot of our retailers were also looking at some closures. One of our big customers are the airport stores. That represents about 28 to 30% of our business. When travel stopped, they stopped ordering. So instantly, I saw, you know, some pretty significant dips in potential sales. So we were kind of scrambling. We didn't know what to do. And then I remembered that we have a fairly robust product development pipeline. And we had developed a hand sanitizer about, oh gosh, a year and a half ago now. We had been tossing it back and forth. Do we want to release this hand sanitizer? How does it kind of go along with the Los Poblanos wellness mission? And it's like, well, it seems like such a commodity item. We are not the cheapest brand because of our commitment to the ingredients we use. And so we kind of went back and forth and we developed it. It was sitting kind of on the back burner. When all of this hit, we saw that there were shortages of hand sanitizer. And we got together and said, hey, we can make this hand sanitizer. So we started doing that. Well, that kind of led into the next problem, which was our bottles. Luckily, we had a huge stock of bottles that we could pull off of, because about this time last year and this time this year, we're looking at what we're planning on using for Q2 of next year. And why we have to go so far in advance is most of, if not all, packaging that you find in the world, all plastic packaging comes from China. It's just where it is now. It's the cheapest manufacturing. However, you have to put in your orders. There is a 45 to 50 day manufacturing lead time. And then it goes on the slow boat, which is about 5 weeks. So you have to plan to have everything that you want come to you by mid-January, because you see shutdowns of manufacturing in China starting mid-January into February, depending on when Lunar New Year hits. And so Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, they close all the factories. A lot of factories in China have dorms that their employees live in. And so when Lunar New Year hits, they all go home. And so this is when we saw the COVID outbreak start last year. Now I started seeing it pop up on news sites, the end of December, early January of last year. And so I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I started scrambling and ordering in packaging components for anything I could. What ended up happening was we had to be kind of nimble. I had to look at other products that we sell. We have a shampoo, conditioner, body wash, lotion. I started redirecting all of my packaging from those lower running products. I felt like if I ran out of shampoo and conditioner, it was probably going to be less detrimental than if I used the packaging for sanitizer. So our first run, we weren't sure how it was going to run. So we ran about 6,000 bottles. We released it on April 8th. It's a day I will never forget. We sold out of the 6,000 bottles in 4 hours. So the demand was there. I had a panic. Everybody was freaking out. So we started shifting a lot of our capacity to making more hand sanitizer. We were shifting bottles. We were shifting all of our resources to producing the hand sanitizer and hand soap. The customer loss that we had from retailers closing across the country, the airports closing, we were able to recover about 80% of it by having one product released out into the market. So we were able to scramble and kind of recover. Now we had about a 4-week lag because we weren't expecting such an overwhelming response. Our next issue was finding ethanol alcohol, which if you pay attention, there's a lot of hand sanitizers that were using methyl alcohol, which is from wood. So there were issues around that. Now we could find it. That wasn't an issue, but because we had a commitment to using good products, we were just kind of waiting for ethyl alcohol to break free. So that's when you started seeing a lot of the distilleries kind of jump into the game. And, you know, it was just kind of managing this whole thing. So we're working with all of these lead times, looking at, you know, what's coming out of China, and I'm seeing my inventory start to deplete. We start panicking. There's all kinds of packaging reseller sites out there that people who have overstock will sell. So we started finding all kinds of packagings. We found bottles that look like this. We found these bottles. I don't know if you can see them. They're really wonky. These are actually water bottles that Air Canada had bought for a contract. I brought in 12,000 of these from Canada. We have some refills in these, different tops. We were starting to hoard packaging. Because we were a smaller manufacturer, I was able to kind of broker some deals for bottles of quantities of like 2,000. They're not enough for a larger manufacturer to really look at, but because I'm able to piecemeal them. So we were able to kind of put out packaging that was probably outside of our brand, but people wanted the product in it more than they wanted what it looked like. So we kept going through. Since April, I have sold 32,000 bottles of sanitizer, which is unprecedented. For a small brand, we're considered a small batch manufacturer. This is something that we hadn't even expected. Because of some resourcefulness on my team and finding all these different packaging, I have gotten all the way to September. I am in the middle of a 1-week out of stock for my hand soap. I'm expecting to get more back in Tuesday, but we begged, borrowed, and stole anywhere and everywhere we could. We even had to release some hand sanitizer with a flip top instead of a pump. But it's been really kind of a case study in really understanding what your supply chain looks like. I have some packaging components that come out of Europe. So I have to stock up because August typically European companies closed down for August for holidays. Even with COVID, they still did their August shutdown. So really kind of looking forward and being really nimble. What really saved us was having a pretty dynamic and full product development pipeline. I'm still, I still have other products. We're looking at potential CBD for 2021 that's been in the pipeline, but really having a real understanding of what my supply chain looked like, and those timings really kind of saved me, and really looking at what was going on. Now, if I wasn't paying attention to the COVID outbreak that was happening in January and kind of reading the writing on the wall that this potentially could be catastrophic, most of these plants didn't open back up until April. So that bubble of manufacturing got huge. Well, the other issue is what was coming into ports. Those ports only have so much capacity. And when things started shaking loose, we're not even going to talk about tariff issues and all that other stuff. That's a whole other, I think, lecture. But when things started shaking loose, all of those containers started coming into ports. Well, the Department of Commerce was putting a priority on PPE, so masks, gloves, respirators, that kind of stuff coming in from overseas was getting prioritized. Only so much product is allowed into a country from another country at a time based off of what our trade agreements are. So stuff like this is going to sit in port for weeks, potentially. And so we're seeing port delays now because of just capacity. You can only process so much in a day. So there's backups in ports. So now I'm looking at some other containers I get custom printed in China. We just got our pallet. I actually have to order another pallet now to make it for manufacturing before Lunar New Year, so that I can potentially have that pallet come and hit my dock in April. So I am planning product arrivals for April of 2021, hoping that we don't see a second resurgence of COVID and a shutdown of manufacturing in China. What this has caused me to do actually is start to look and see and I've heard through the grapevine and through Sombra and other, that packaging factories are starting to open back up in Mexico. So we're looking to diversify our supply chain and not rely so much on packaging coming out of China. So we're looking at other North American plants that I can utilize. They're probably not as cheap as some other things coming out of China, but you know, we can look at that as we go down the road. So Dr. Montoya wanted me to elaborate on what the critical mass that made me realize the writing was on the wall, and it was urgent as it became. I'm kind of a manufacturing nerd my whole life. So I've learned to kind of read what trends were, and just knowing kind of how this disease was kind of progressing quickly, and people weren't really sure what was going on, and knowing it, some of the cultural factors in China on how the manufacturing culture works, how all these workers live in dorms and then they went home, and how Wuhan is such a critical manufacturing hub in China, that I just saw that this didn't look good. I had no real basis of real solid facts. It was just kind of reading trade journals, looking at how different provinces in China, you know, there's different centralized industries. In the United States, you know, you have Silicon Valley, very much the same in China, where you see some of those industries cluster, that this could potentially be really bad. So many supply chain issues come out of China and how delicate the global supply chain is if you see one thing fall. And so many people take for granted the plastic bottles that we use every day. You know, a lot of the shortages that we saw with Clorox wipes and bleach and all of that stuff, it wasn't because the manufacturers couldn't make the product. It was they couldn't get the packaging to put it in and ship it out. So it's the commodity items that we take for granted every day, boxes, plastic bottles, those are the things that are keeping kind of those supply chains, and just kind of being aware of what your supply chain looks like, how far back everything goes is so critical in everything you do, and just realizing where every component comes from and what goes into making those components. The issue with our pumps is there's a lot of hand assembly that goes into these. And so the lead times on these went through the roof. I was able to find these flip caps much quicker because it's a two-piece assembly that pops together. Whereas if you look at a lot of the pumps, there's a spring and a ball bearing, and there's probably 12 different parts that go into a pump. And so just really understanding everything that goes into your product is critical. So Monica asked, is it more expensive to purchase from manufacturers in Mexico than China, and is there a quality difference? Not necessarily. This is why you have to really be careful with the vendors you pick and really understand the cost of doing business. So some of my manufacturers in China or Mexico, look at what your order quantities have to be. So I have another small component. It's a bamboo lid for my candle. I'm having issues with that one. They're not expected to be in until December. I've been selling crazy amounts of candles. People being at home, wanting the lavender scent. So we're looking at a local artisan, but we found another factory in China who can do it, but they want a minimum quantity of 10,000 pieces. 10,000 pieces for me is about 3 years of inventory. Now, per piece, it's super cheap, but now I have to find storage to put those. Storage isn't cheap. You know, you have to pay rent, heating, insurance, all that stuff, and hope that we decide to not change our design in the next 3 years. So really, the per piece cost is only a small piece of the larger factor in the cost of your materials. So you could also look at, I have another vendor who holds inventory. I can do larger POs, get a cheaper cost, and they'll hold inventory for me for 120 days. So now, instead of looking at a 30-day forecast, I can look at 120 days and utilize some price breaks that way. So really, when you're doing this kind of stuff, really the supply chain, it's super important to treat your vendors as well as you treat your customers. You have to have a really tight relationship with them, really feel confident in their process, their operations, how they make your product. And so while I have contract manufacturers make my product for me, I treat them like my own facility. I visit them often. We have conversations at least once a week. I want to understand what's going on in their facility, what things are plaguing them, what's holding up their operations, and the same thing for my vendors. I treat them as my partners. I need to know what's going on because I have to have faith that we're all in this together and that we'll be able to get product to the end consumer with the highest quality. So it's a lot of work, but it's worth it in the end because then you can really understand what's going on and get that stuff to your customer. So through all this, we've been steadily growing at 20% over the last 5 years. And so this year we were budgeting another 20% growth. We are actually, through all this, despite everything, we are tracking the same sales as we did last year. So while we're not seeing a 20% growth, we're not seeing a loss. So taking a flat plateau sales, 2020 to 2019, I will take it. So I've been pretty happy. How long did it take for my vendors and suppliers to trust you that we deliver quality? Oh, that's the fun one, right? I think it's an ongoing process. It really starts up front, setting your expectations up front. When you're having those conversations with your vendors, you just upfront tell them what your expectations are, what you expect. Oftentimes, you know, we actually send our vendors Christmas gifts. A lot of times, you see it the other way. We will send our, you know, a lot of like bankers or whatever, they will send their customers gifts as appreciation. We actually send our vendors gifts, especially if there are packaging suppliers. We will make sure we're sending them product that the packages that they supply us go into, so they can see really how integral they are to our products and that we appreciate them. And really, it's just kind of open communication, setting the expectations up front, and just, you know, holding them accountable, saying if there's going to be a quality issue, we're going to call you on it and we expect it to be fixed. And on the same token, if we're not holding up our end of the deal, you know, we want to know as well. It's interesting for a lot of our vendors. We supply the lavender oil. So we're a vendor and a customer to most of our vendors, because we are supplying them with the product and expecting the product back. So it goes both ways. So it's a really unique situation that Los Poblanos is in, because the oil that we grow and distill on property, we supply. So, you know, we get it as well. So yeah, so it's just it's a lot of work. It's a lot of visits, lunches. And so it's really important to us, especially for some of our key contract manufacturers, that we keep that communication open. And because we're here to lift up New Mexico, we really, really value local vendors, because they're here in the community, and it's easier for me to pop over there if we want to have a meeting. Pre-COVID, it was so nice that you could just pop in, but with COVID, we have a lot of phone calls, Zoom, you know, get to see what our partners' houses look like, what their kitchens look like, dogs, cats, kids, all that fun stuff. So it's been kind of interesting through this that we've actually gotten a lot closer to some of our vendors and customers, because, you know, we're hanging out with them in their house, especially some of our buyers. So I think, how much do we export products versus selling them within New Mexico? That's a great question. So we have a partner in Japan who is actually in the process of disengaging. She's retiring. But so for our Japan customer, we were sending about $100,000 worth of product every year. So we're looking for a new partner in Japan. But right now we have about, let's see, we have a new customer we just picked up in Bermuda. So we've been shipping to her. We have a handful, about 5 or 6 customers in Canada. So we've been shipping to Canada. A big one for Canada is actually Nordstrom's in Canada has picked us up. So that's been kind of fun. And then we're in about 38 of the 50 states. In August, we partnered with a sales and marketing firm called Aesthetic Movement. So they're going to rep us in some of the other territories that we haven't been able to service from New Mexico. Just looking at some of the restrictions with COVID and how we could effectively grow our brand, because for Los Poblanos, the products are kind of the national ambassador. So we've seen a kind of steady uptick. With the lavender and COVID and stress and anxiety, we've seen a huge uptick in interest in our products. And so we're really excited because we do grow and distill the lavender on our property, that it really is a small piece of New Mexico that we send all over the country. Everything that has lavender oil in it has come from the property here in Los Ranchos.
I had a question regarding how you identify target markets. So how often do you, for example, in COVID-19, there's a lot of issues, mental health issues, stress issues that pop up as a result of COVID-19 and the stay-at-home orders and other things. And for you, how do you isolate certain problems that are going on or certain externalities that are occurring, and how it connects to the value proposition of your product already?
Yeah, so kind of at first with the hand sanitizer, we really kind of leveraged that that sanitary health and safety, the hand soap and the hand sanitizer, just, you know, protect your family, protect, you know, be healthy. We kind of noticed, so that was back starting April. So we noticed sometime about June, mid-June, there was this, you could just kind of feel a wariness about, yeah, wash your hands, yeah, sanitizer. And so we had kind of shifted to this, back to our wellness model. You know, kind of back, the products do increase the travel to the hotel because they look up where it came from. And so we have a beautiful website, crazy social media presence. And really our brand intention is wellness, and how do you take care of yourself and treat yourself, and really kind of wellness. So we went back to the wellness. While our hand soap and sanitizer do keep you clean and safe, you know, lavender is relaxing. We have lotion, bath salts, and we've seen a huge uptick when we kind of swung back to that self-care. You can't go to our hotel right now, but bring some of it to you. Are you worried about your sister or your nieces or your best friend across country? We've seen a huge uptick in people sending care packages from our farm shop with these lovely notes about just thinking about you. Just, you know, we hope you're taking care of yourself. Enjoy a little piece of New Mexico. This lavender is wonderful. It'll bring you some serenity. So we've kind of, when we pushed hard with the sanitizer, we pushed on the taking care of yourself and being sanitary, but then we swung back to our core of wellness and taking care of yourself and really just treating yourself.
Good. As a quick follow-up before you get to the chat ones, was insomnia anything that ever came up?
For me?
Yeah, probably for you in the production line, but just insomnia is a general problem these days as a result of COVID-19, like lavender being associated with a direct cure for, or at least a way of remedying that.
Yeah, so a lot of people, I think, you know, I think the Washington Post, New York Times, a lot of articles have come out about some of the mental health issues that have come out of COVID, some isolation, anxiety, stress. A lot of those cause some insomnia. And what's kind of cool with lavender is, especially in New Mexico, it came with the Spaniards when they came over and came up the Camino Real. And so interestingly enough, the Spanish word for lavender is alusema, which is actually an Arabic word. And so, you know, I had friends growing up, since I grew up here, whose grandmothers would give them alusema tea if they were having trouble sleeping or if they felt stressed out, which was just steeped lavender buds. And so you would see a lot of teas that have lavender, chamomile, all that stuff. And so traditionally you would have lavender tea to calm and help sleep. Lavender also has some antiseptic properties. Now, none of this is FDA, you know, blessed, so take it for what it is. But historically, they would use lavender oil for antiseptic properties to heal cuts and burns. I have emails, oh gosh, going back years, that our lavender salve has cured cuts, burns, eczema, diaper rash, all that kind of stuff. So You know, traditionally people have gone to lavender. You see, they go back to what their grandmothers used to do to make them feel better. And is it, you know, the effect of it? You just remember your grandma giving you the tea and it made you go to sleep, or are there really things that help? And so a lot of this stuff, especially in New Mexico, has traditionally been lavender. Has really kind of helped assuage some of the issues that have come up with COVID and anxiety.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Michael and then Ashley had questions on the chat.
Michael. Yeah, so Michael, the products increase interest in travel to the hotel. Absolutely. We treat them as our little ambassadors around the country. And so when people get one, they look up our website. If you go to our website, the products are not the first thing that pop up. It goes to our property and the stories of our property and all of that. And so then you have to dig and find our products. But definitely, it's our little ambassador. So since lavender grows well in New Mexico, do customers come to you since it's a specialty product that doesn't grow everywhere? Or do we still have to do a lot of marketing? So we still do have to do a lot of marketing. The lavender varietal we grow is actually a cross. It's a hybrid. It's called Grosso. And so because of the terre noir here and our growing conditions, our lavender is not the angustifolia, very sweet French perfumey lavender. Our lavender has a higher camphor note, so it has a little bit more of a medicinal note, but it attracts people because it doesn't smell overly perfumey. It feels more New Mexico, and so people are attracted to it because it does have a different smell, and it's not perfumey or fake smelling like you can with some of the European. But like wines, you know, grapes grown in California have a different taste than grapes grown in Texas versus Chile versus Australia, France, all of that stuff. So really the lavender we grow is very unique to the Rio Grande Valley. And so we kind of really utilize that. And so if you look at a lot of our branding, we don't go with purple. You won't see any purple in our branding. All our branding is very earth tones, apothecary, something that you would go into in a 1932 kind of corner drugstore that somebody had formulated in the back. So we want to really definitely get that feel. Also, our branding utilizes San Isidro, which is the patron saint of farmers. And so if you ever come to property, there is a San Isidro statue that overlooks our lotus pond. And so we really value some of the history that came with the land that we occupy, and just, you know, a nod to the indigenous people who were here before us too. So we really kind of take pride in the land that we occupy and take care of it and tell the stories. So Beth had a question on how do companies such as Nordstrom's in Canada find us? Funny, we're in a crazy fortunate position that people who come and visit go to our farm shop, buy some products and give it as gifts. More often than not, some of those people are buyers at Nordstrom's or Goop or various other things, and so they kind of seek us out. So we're very fortunate that we have a great pipeline of people coming in who want to carry our products, and partnering with a sales and marketing firm to help us find other customers as well is really important to us. And so we're really cautious on the customers that we find. We don't want to sell just to anybody. We are kind of a higher end brand, but we also want to give our customers that kind of feel that they're special. And so we are very cautious at giving exclusivity in certain neighborhoods, make sure that their store aligns with our brand and our aesthetic. And it sounds a little, you know, poosy, but we really do treat our entire supply chain from the beginning of our vendors all the way through our end users as family. and we want to take care of them all. Does anybody have any other questions? Thoughts, comments? I know it's been kind of a long day on Zoom for everybody.
Right. Yeah, you can even feel a little bit of the Zoom haze that kind of sits over
Yeah,
us.
well, and then the lavender is probably just wafting through.
That's right. That's right.
Well, we were up pretty early today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, what a
Troopers everywhere.
fantastic story. It's a fantastic story. I got a lot of really good tidbits from you, especially the supply chain logistics and trying to understand what goes into every aspect of it. You know, what are your suppliers' bottlenecks? And of course, treating your customers, your vendors, your suppliers as you would your family, and building that trust and relationship is really important.
Yeah.
Nice job.
And really the thing that, you know, when I was doing consulting so much, people would buy these huge supplies of you know, packaging, boxes, bottles, or whatever, because they got a good deal. And I said, well, really? Did you get a good deal? Because now you're paying $200 a month for the storage, and it's going to take you 4 years to go through it. Is it really a good deal? So really understanding all of the costs that go into your components is so critical, and really leveraging your vendors, because sometimes they can do stocking agreements for you. You know, 120 days, they won't charge you. You can use their storage for free. Well, for free, they build it in, let's be real. But, you know, there's no hidden fees really. It's what you get. And so you can utilize your space. And so that's when you're looking at your operation. What's making you money and what's costing you money? Storing components is costing you money, where you can use some of that space to add a production line or an R&D facility or any of that kind of stuff instead of buying a new facility. So you can't find other companies to go into an order together. Sometimes you can. It depends. Honestly, the manufacturing base in New Mexico for personal care products is pretty small. We utilize our contract manufacturer quite a bit for that, but not everybody uses the same packaging. And so do you want your potential competitor using the same packaging? So it kind of depends. There are a lot of industries that do that. The breweries are an amazing example of that. While they are competitive with each other, it's kind of like a sibling rivalry, where if there's a brewery that needs something and someone has extra, they will jump in and help. You probably, I don't know if anyone's brewery fanatics, I kind of am. During COVID, a lot of them do the crowlers, the tall cans. Well, they were starting to run out, same issue. A lot of that packaging comes from China. And so you would see a lot of the different breweries loaning cans to each other, trying to get them through it so they could all get through it together, because they felt as an industry that if they could lift each other up, they could all get through it together. So depending on what your industry is and what the components are, then yeah, everybody can do it. So Monica said, too bad the pump bottle on my desk can't be reused. Oh no. Sometimes you can reuse them, sometimes you can't. You're gonna start to see packaging start to shake out. So I got some pumps in, and so all the flip caps, I've been actively working with my customers to change out the flip caps to pumps, because customers want the pumps more than the flip caps. So you know, and that's just an extra cost I've had to incur through COVID is, you know, for customer service, kind of spend a little bit more money on packaging. And that's when I was kind of borrowing and stealing and finding all these components. I was paying a lot more than I normally would, but it was important to keep things going. So awesome. Thank you, Gina.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments, concerns, complaints?
No complaints at all. Karen, it's always a pleasure. You've been a great colleague, and I'm glad to call you among colleagues in the adjunct team that we're working on with 328.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Montoya. It's been great. It's been so much fun. You know, talking about manufacturing, I'm such a manufacturing, I'm such a manufacturing nerd. It's,
Well,
but it's so interesting, and you know, how much you take for granted where your pieces and parts come from. That, you know, in my classes, I would say just think about the shirt you're wearing, or the box of Cheerios, where it all comes from. And if you start pulling on those threads, you'll see how small of a world it is and where everything comes from, and how fragile supply chains really can be.
yeah, yeah, thank you. And this is a testament, like you're a manufacturing engineering nerd. What that also says, your technological skill is also about instincts, and what you were able to see and anticipate in this particular issue is one of the things that I think I learned a lot from this presentation. So
yeah, and that's just, you know, keeping up on everything. You know, a few years ago there was the issue that happened in the Ukraine. The port just fell out of my head, but most of the organic sunflower oil comes out of that region, and so a lot of the organic personal care products were impacted because of political strife in the Ukraine. So it's important to know your supply chain, where things come from, and pay attention to what's going on, because it can really, really, really impact you. Even though you don't think it will, it probably will.
absolutely. So on that note, thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I want to acknowledge and thank Gina for helping me and supporting me throughout this process. She's been a great director for EPEC, and is on the calls. And you don't have to be Gina, but you're on the calls. And you know, Randy's still on the call. Celeste is still on the call. Thank you guys for your time. You guys have been amazing. You guys really bring it. Every time I ask you guys to share data and information, you give us a wealth. And I'm grateful to Juan and to Chris. I think the thread that was being drawn together, I think all comes together as you see this conversation about New Mexico and what it really is like to be globally connected in New Mexico. I think we have a really, really strong starting point for us to continue that conversation. And Destiny and Yuri, thank you guys. You guys have always been superlative partners. And I think what you might take away from this, as you see how we're all kind of related to each other and we all know each other, is that New Mexico is really much like a family. Like this kind of connectedness does happen at a very direct level. And so whatever ecosystem is supporting us becoming this, you clearly are a part of that as EMBA students. So it's not even 2-3 degrees of separation. You're directly involved in the lines and channels that are creating what is ultimately going to be the economic future and destiny of this state. So thank you all for participating. A couple of just logistical notes. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, we will begin with the discussion with Claire. She's going to be talking about craft economy, and she's going to be talking about the major markets here in the United States that export and import craft economy. And the Swedish Institute sent me a couple of emails saying they're trying their best. I'm anticipating that they're not going to be able to participate right now, but that's okay. Their goodwill is still there, and they're going to be able to produce something for us. So if we're not able to, we'll just truncate the day with our conversation with Claire, and we'll have the Swedish Institute participate later in the semester. But for our purposes, I think today was a massive success. And Yuri, Destiny, do you guys have any thoughts? Anything you guys would like to close with?
Just really quick, and I know that Randy mentioned that I definitely would like to say that this class in particular, you guys are very fortunate to have someone as Dr. Montoya with the knowledge. I always say that he is a encyclopedia, because has a lot of knowledge of so many things, and the importance, and him adding Global Ties ABQ as an organization, as a non-profit organization with all the international visitors that we're able to bring, and the component that we can add to the class, and always happy to help in any ways, Dr. Montoya. We thank you for making us part of this wonderful class that you're able to teach virtually.
My pleasure. You guys rock, and it's nice to be working with you guys. I will be sending out specific information about the assignment that's going to be connected to all of this. But to Yuri's point, I think I think the kind of partnerships that we're going to have moving forward, this is a special year because, and I know that there's disappointment because of the international trip not being there, but what this has galvanized is how we memorialize these discussions and use them moving forward to serve different stakeholders. So I think what is lost there is gained in a lot of the thinking that we've been doing to kind of maintain these relationships more formally and to make sure that we're putting them to use in new and innovative ways. So that happens as a result of your cohort. So you have my gratitude for that. Having said that, I think everybody's tired. And so I wish you guys a wonderful rest of the evening, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning for what may be a very quick session, but it will conclude this supplemental portion. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.